Good evening. I am Anitra Steele, Chair of the Forums Committee. Welcome to our forum for Park Hill School Board. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Jackson, Clay, and Platte counties, and Alpha Kappa Alpha Advocate for Social Justice Initiative of chapters Beta Omega and Psi Tau Omega. This forum will be recorded and available on the League's webpage, lwvkc.org, and on YouTube. The League of Women Voters is a trusted, grassroots, nonpartisan organization whose members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we neither endorse nor oppose candidates or political parties, we are directly involved with sharing the important issues. Our mission is to empower voters and defend our democracy. We envision a democracy where every citizen has the knowledge, the right, the desire, and the confidence to participate. Our membership is open to everyone. I'd like you to know the other League members volunteering with me. Stephanie Revels is our timekeeper, and our Zoom is monitored by Dave Montjoy. The public has sent in the questions via the League's website, lwvkc.org. Tonight, we welcome our moderator, Sandy Eads, past president of LWVKC. Welcome, Sandy. Welcome, candidates.
Thanks, Anitra. And I'm delighted to join you for the Candidates Forum for Park Hill School Board. As most people know, the Board of Education is a volunteer representative body elected by the registered voters of the local public school district. The board governs the school district and provides leadership and advocacy for public education. School boards make decisions in the best interest of the entire district. They serve a 3-year term. Tonight, we'll hear from candidates running for the school board. Forums last approximately 90 minutes. I'll ask each candidate the same question, selected from those submitted by the candidate response is determined by random rotation. Each candidate will be given seconds to listen to each question, 2 minutes for a closing statement. All of the candidates for these seats have been invited. Candidates that's participating there is Poland, Anchor, Ross, candidates can answer this as a second topic. Bubbles, recognition, and closing remarks. So let's begin. And I'll get here to the questions. And we're going to start with introductions, and we'll start with Deanna Munoz. Please introduce yourself and give us your qualifications to serve on the school board.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deanna Munoz. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I am a mother of 4, 3 who have been in Park Hill, 1 that is currently a junior at Park Hill South. And I'm a mom who is here to support our school board and our community. And I'm super excited about possibly being on this board. I have a not-for-profit that I've worked with educators, youth, and I believe with that background, I'll be able to help and support the work that needs to be done in our Park Hill district. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Next is Janice.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Janice Bolin. I live in the Northland with my husband, and I have been on this Park Hill School Board for 17 years. My background is in accounting and finance, and I've had the opportunity to work in great Kansas City companies. I worked at George K. Baum and Company. I was CFO of Kansas City Public Library, and my kids were all involved in soccer, and so I was very involved in the soccer community. So I currently work at Kansas City Current as Director of Soccer operations. And I'm just loving it there. So, like I said, I've been on the school board for 17 years. I feel very blessed to have been on there. I enjoy serving my community, and I'm very proud of the work we've done. But one of our tenets of our organization is continuous improvement, and that's why I still want to continue to run. Is that there's still work to be done, and I know that even though we do a lot of things really well, there's still room for improvement. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to continue my work.
Thanks, Alexia, or Janice. Next up, Alexia Norris.
Hi there, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for organizing this. As you are aware, I'm Alexia Norris. I'm excited to be running for a full term on the school board. I was actually appointed to an open seat about 6 months ago. So I've really enjoyed my time on the board, but feel like I've just barely gotten started. So I'm excited to run for election on April 7th. As a brief background, I grew up in the far Northland in Weston. I attended West Platte High School, went to college and law school at Mizzou. My husband and I have been in the Park Hill School District, living here for about 17 years. And I practice law at a Kansas City-based law firm. And I find as a lawyer, I am used to trying to bring different perspectives together. And I think that's very helpful on the school board. I'm inspired by my family. My mom was a teacher. My dad served on our local school board. So supporting our public schools has always been a priority for me. Now that I have two girls in elementary school and about another 10 years as a parent in this district, it's just very important for me. I'm committed to keeping this a great place to raise a family. And that's why I'm running for election of the school board. Thank you.
Um,
My name is Brandon Kleinmeyer. I am also in the accounting and finance field. I run the tax division at a wealth management firm in Gladstone, but I live in Park Hill. I have two daughters, one in sixth grade and one in kindergarten, that are both going to be in the district for several more years. So I will be around for a while. I also have my wife who works for one of the schools in the district in the front office there. So I get a lot of firsthand accounts of the things that could be improved upon and what's working. So I'd like to take that firsthand knowledge of where we can improve, combine that with, the accounting background, finance background I have, and how my kids are doing, and roll that all into a package to support the rest of the kids in the school district and the community. So that's why I'm running.
Just a second. Sandy, I am
Sure.
having a hard time hearing. I'm not sure if anyone else is.
Yeah, I can't hear you very well either. You
No.
keep cutting in and out.
Absolutely.
I'm cutting in and out.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, how does it sound now?
Better.
Okay. Raise your hand, or Dave, send me a note or something in case. I should be okay, but this is troubling. All right. Well, we'll start with Alexia. Here's the question. How do you intend to balance raising the overall health of the district with meeting the needs of each individual school? Even in a prestigious district like this, some communities feel they've been left out without enough resources.
Thank you for that question. The mission of Park Hill is, to provide a successful future for every student. And I do believe in that individualized education. One of the ways that I think we can most balance, the experience for every student is to make sure that the teaching staff at each school is very similar, has the same qualifications, providing the same curriculum to every school. And so everyone has that same education opportunity. And then second, our facilities certainly run the gamut. We have a new elementary that just opened. And then, we have a high school with Park Hill that was built many decades ago, as well as some of our middle schools. So I actually think one of the ways we can most make each student feel that they're having the same experience is through our facilities. So with Proposition O, which passed last year, where we're using the bond proceeds, one of the important things with those bond initiatives is that we are touching every school. So just because your student may not be attending one of the newest schools, that they're still having safety and interior upgrades that are happening at every school. So that no matter where a student attends, they feel like they still have the same experience.
Thank you. Brandon?
Yeah. Part of it, we can't pretend like every school needs the same things. We have newer schools that are upgraded facilities, and we have older schools with worse facilities. And pretending that they need the same things is not going to put them in similar learning environments. We have schools like Angeline, Washington that just opened up, and they have like a decimal point free and reduced lunch program, like hardly any students there. And then you have schools like Line Creek or Renner who are like 40+%. Those schools don't need the same things. They need different things. We need to individualize what resources the schools get in order to make sure the students get the same things. We can't just send the same things to everybody and expect that to work. That's just not going to happen. As far as like facilities go, yeah, I mean, some of these schools like Renner just went through a remodel, but they look exactly the same as before. You could show me a before and after picture and there'd be no difference. So we need to make sure that when we're doing these remodels to help get these older schools up to the newer standards, that we're doing it correctly and not just throwing money at it and have no idea where it went.
Thanks. Janice?
Yeah.
If I need
Thanks
to
for the
repeat the question, I'm happy to.
That's okay. Thanks for the question, though. I think one of the, I'll agree with the other candidates that every school needs something different. And I am proud to say that we don't have just equal resources across every school. We don't just say, oh, here's what we're doing for elementary and then divide that up. Our administrators work very hard to get individualized plans for each school, just like we do for each student. And one of the things that we can really do is focus on curriculum and quality of teaching. And those should be a standard across the district. But the resources to support those can vary widely, from free and reduced lunch to just demographics to just different things that each building needs. And our principals have the ability to speak up and ask for the resources they need to give each student in their building what they need. It's equitable. It's not equal. The resources that we strive to provide to each building. So I think that's the way that you can elevate each individual building while also caring for the district as a whole.
Thank you. Deanna?
Thank you for the question. My kids have been in Plaza, Southeast, Walden, Park Hill South, and all of those very, very different schools. Some got better facilities, some do not. Our band just got a new facility and that I'm sure is helping tremendously with what they've had to use before. I am in agreement in the fact that we cannot treat all our schools equally. That is not how I think we should be running these schools. We need to be in constant communication with the superintendent, and especially our educators and our students, as well as our families. All those voices are important to what the board decision-making comes to. We can't leave one voice out. All of them are important. And I'm not comfortable with the word prestigious because not everybody feels like Park Hill is prestigious. I mean, I'm not sure who put that word in this, but that is something that doesn't feel good to me because we have a lot of work to do still. There's still a lot of work. And yes, we are doing great work, but there's still a lot to do. I think we're leaving out an entire community of kids and students and families who maybe don't feel like that word resonates or makes them feel like they are Park Hill.
Thank you. Brandon, we're going to start the next question with you. Science, history, current events, and culture are constantly evolving.
You're cutting out again. You're cutting out again.
Try this. Science, history, how does that sound? Can you hear me?
That's better.
Science, history, current events, culture, or constantly evolving.
No,
How
We
no.
lost you again.
Oh, what's going on here? Um, I'll hold the plug in. How's, how does this sound?
Better.
Science, history, current events, and culture are constantly evolving. How can schools help students learn to become independent thinkers? That's for
Um,
you, Brandon.
okay. Yeah. We need to, just thinking back to when I was in school, we were always taught one side of history. And then as an adult, you learn another side of history. And if you don't learn both sides of things, you're never going to be able to learn to critically think for yourself to decipher what's right and what's wrong. And that's something that when it comes to critical thinking, we need to learn, we need to understand where the other side is coming from on different issues. Or, and so whether you're talking about history, and that's a big thing, is learning both sides of the issue. And then, science, you learn the scientific method that helps with critical thinking. And then math, learning the style of math that works for you. I mean, I know Common Core is a big thing, or was for a while there, and some people like it, some people hate it. I don't know why we teach just one way. I've never understood why schools teach just one way when people learn in different ways. So we need to figure that out, how we can teach different ways to the kids' skill sets to help them learn the best. And that will help their critical thinking across the board.
Thank you. Alexia,
Would you mind asking that again? It cut out at the very beginning.
not at all. Science, history, current events, and culture are constantly evolving. How can schools help students learn to become independent thinkers?
Thank you. I appreciate that question. One thing I'm proud of Park Hill for is, as part of our comprehensive school improvement plan, we've developed what does it look like for a graduate from our school. We have a graduate profile, and it's interesting. Just one piece of that, is what is the content knowledge of a student who graduates. So, where are they in their English language skills and math, et cetera. But thinking skills and resilience are important parts of the graduate profile, because we know with the way everything is changing so quickly. I mean, even in my own business with AI and how that's changing everything over the next several years, what will it look like when my students graduate? So I think they have the best chance if those thinking skills and qualities of resilience are taught to them. And I know that Park Hill is committed to doing that K through 12, so that students come out, they're able to adapt. They obviously have, the thinking, the content knowledge, but they also have the resilience and thinking skills. And I very much support that. That needs to stay a part of everything that we're teaching from K through 12, so that kids can come out and that they're able to adapt.
Thanks. Deanna?
Thank you. For me, I think it's a matter of working with our educators and continually talking and being in communication with them about what is going on in the world currently, right? So that when we're bringing this education to our students, it is in the real time of what is going on. We don't want to be outdated, and we want to ensure that our students are living within their times and learning about it and understanding it. And so I think just training, being and working with the educators, and just ensuring that our students, feel like they have a real world learning when it comes to science and history. If that's what you asked, correct? The science and history part of that?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Janice, you get to wrap this up.
All right. Well, Alexia took a lot of my answer, because I was going to comment on our graduate profile as well, and how so much of that is built around how we're learning and skills to keep learning, to be lifelong learners. And academic rigor is just one piece of that. So I know that Park Hill has heard from its stakeholders and the employers in the area that the most important skill to have isn't knowledge. It's the ability to collaborate and work with other people to solve problems. And so that is so much baked into our curriculum all the way through from kindergarten clear through high school. And it was very uncomfortable for me for a while from my generation. I think because, you wanted to just learn the content and do well on a test. But right now it's so much different because we're teaching for lifelong learners for jobs that they're going to have in another 20 or 30 or 40 years. So it's more about actually teaching how to learn, the skills to collaborate, the skills to have self-resilience, self-control, and be able to learn how you learn, and offer every student the chance to have a whole host of skills to be able to learn differently and not just about the academic content.
Well, Janice, you get to do segue here.
Oh, you're cutting out. Sorry, you're cutting out again.
Here we go. How should schools approach artificial intelligence and emerging technologies in the classroom?
Boy, I think we could talk the rest of this webinar about AI and its effect on education. And I think education is kind of on the forefront of this. Like they're having to deal with it immediately and kind of dive into how it affects everything. So you can't just say anymore, oh, turn off your computers or you can't use AI for this, because it's everywhere and it affects everything we do. And it's very much going to be a part of the students' lives. So it's more about teaching the skills to be able to use AI and how to evaluate the information you get, and continually teaching yourself and growing. So again, it goes back to that lifelong learning, that it's very different than it was a few years ago. And education is still struggling with that a little bit, but they are really tackling, I know we are at Park Hill, just tackling it head on to try and find the best ways to use AI as a tool. It's a powerful tool, but also keep the integrity of learning in the classroom.
Thank you. Deanna, your take?
So I'm constantly learning, right? I didn't grow up with AI. I'm still learning this, and especially ChatGPT, all of that. And unfortunately, we talk about the bad parts of it, right? The water usage and all the negative things that can happen to us in this world because of AI. And on the other end of it, it's just something that is emerging, and it is here and it is with us. So how can we ensure that our students and our educators and our families feel safe and they feel like they're using it in the best way possible? I have college kids that aren't allowed to use any of that, and they have to think for themselves. They have to be critical thinkers. And it's like, even on that end of it, are we ensuring that our students are still giving the most that they can from themselves? So basically learning how to do this on their own without having to use that on the side, right? Because when they go into college or whatever they do afterwards, there's always going to be points where you're going to have to think for yourself. You have to figure this out on your own. AI is there, but it doesn't mean we always have to use it. But I think it is in our schools to learn how to be safe with it and understand the circumstances that can happen when we do use AI.
Thanks. Brandon, how do you see this one?
So, I mean, AI in the classroom is probably more of a thing for middle schoolers to high schoolers, not so much an elementary school issue, but I mean, maybe older elementary. But I think as different grade levels, we need to teach them about AI and how it hallucinates, it pulls stuff from the internet that's not true. Part of that critical thinking from the last question, we need to teach them how to critically think so they can understand when AI might be wrong and how to fact check AI when it gives an answer that's weird. So we need to really teach the students about it, about what's behind it, the companies that make it. There's different versions. There's Gemini and Chat GPT. You know, we need to, especially with the older kids who are going to be going to college and using it on papers or trying to use it on papers, they need to know that it's not perfect. It's wrong a lot, and we need to also show them practical uses. I use it in my job every single day. So teaching them what's behind it, how to use it, and good uses for it are we need to probably have to have AI classes at some point at Park Hill potentially.
Yep. Alexia, wrap us up here.
This question, I actually was just talking with the superintendent today about, the role of our AI coordinator at school and what tools the students have available. I was asking more in the sense of, what this might be costing the district, or are we being offered these tools? Because I know in my workplace, it's very expensive to get them. So how does that work into our budget? So that's how I was approaching it. But I'll agree with Brandon. AI is a tool, but we must also teach the critical thinking beside it. And I will actually say that my elementary students, my two girls, they might actually see things that they know as AI a little bit better than, maybe my generation. They're going to grow up with this technology kind of, I was growing up their age and I didn't even have cell phones and they can't believe it. So I think they're going to grow up alongside this, just like the other technology they have in the classrooms, whether it's their laptop or an iPad. They're going to have to be able to know how to use it, have to know how it's appropriate, but really, they've got to know that content behind it so that when there is something, that's produced by AI, that they can think critically, know, is this real? No, is this factual? So it's all about teaching that base content and then teaching them how to use the tools alongside that.
Thanks. Brandon, take off the next one.
You're cutting out again.
I'm jiggling my jack here. I hope it works. Does this work?
Yes.
Open enrollment, currently under consideration in the legislature, would allow a student who lives in one school district to attend school in a different district. What effects would open enrollment have on Park Hill?
I think most of the families at Park Hill like Park Hill. I know people that have moved to the Park Hill School District for Park Hill. So I don't think, especially if we keep improving Park Hill School District, that even if that became an option, that anybody's going to leave or very many people will leave. I think we have one of the top schools in the state. I mean, if anything, people might come to Park Hill from other places. That's where I see that. So I think as long as we continue to do everything we can to improve the Park Hill School District to make it a place people want to come, it doesn't matter what the state does. We're going to stay where we're at. We're going to be one of the top schools. We're going to stay a top school. We're going to keep attracting people. So that's the goal, is to, be such a good school district that it doesn't matter what they do.
Alexia, what's your take?
I think open enrollment can be different things here. I'm going to assume it means, students at different public schools might be able to go to a different public school. As a parent, I can completely understand the idea that someone wants their own student to go to, the very best school option that they can go to. My concern is that with open enrollment, that Park Hill would be a district that draws students. And while we would, welcome new students, the big issue is that the money does not necessarily follow that student. So in most of these proposals, state money per pupil might follow that student. We only get about 22% of our funding per student from the state, if that. So we would get 22% of the money to educate that student, but not that remaining gap, which is that about 75% of local funding. It costs, anywhere from about 10 to 12,000 to educate one student. If a student has other needs, if they're English learner, if they had special needs, it's going to cost a lot more to educate that student. That is my concern with the proposals, is really the financial aspect behind it, not the idea that someone wants to choose a different school for their student, but that we would really be left behind financially.
Janice, what do you think?
I agree with that statement. With a lot of what Alexia said, we would welcome any student, and we would hope that all districts across Missouri would be high level, producing high quality education. But I do think Park Hill would be a destination district, and it is difficult to have the money follow the kids. And so I think you would have local tax dollars educating kids from a wide variety of places around the state. And until they can kind of figure that out, I don't think it's a fair assessment to have other kids come in and try and chase money all around the state. I think you're going to end up wasting a lot of time chasing money and kids around different districts. I also really think that this is kind of driven by the having competitive schools. And while that sounds good in idea, so much of education is collaborative. So even if we find out North Kansas City is doing something awesome, we call them and say, help us do something awesome too. And so I feel like a little bit of open enrollment would pit schools against each other, and you would lose a little bit of that collaboration between educators, between school districts, and just across public education. So where I think open enrollment is a good idea in theory, there's a lot of things to be worked out before I would be on board with it.
Thanks. Deanna, let's
Yes,
wrap it up.
yes, I have to agree with Alexia and Janice on this in regards to the funding as well as the competitiveness. I was a parent that moved from KCK 12 years ago to the school district here at Park Hill because we did want to give our kids, that education that we heard about here. But not a lot of families can do that, right? They can't afford the housing that's here, and it's unfortunate. So I do love the fact of open enrollment, but we also have to ensure, as Alexia noted, in regards to the budget, and is that money going to be able to help support those children that do come here? Because we do have a good education system here, and we do want to keep that going and ensure that it's growing. But we also need to ensure that we're able to budget that. And I do agree with the competitiveness. North Kansas City is amazing with Park Hill. I've never felt a better connection. Sometimes I even forget which one's in Platt and which one's in Clay because we feel like we're just a big family. And I know educators in both, and it's like we all want to work together and we all find new ways to work together. And so I don't know of a more collaborative counties than the Clay and Platt. So I would agree 100% on loving the idea, but there's a lot of work to do, and I'm willing to do that work to figure it out.
Thanks. Deanna, you get to stay. What are the most challenges facing our students and how should we address them?
Okay, you said what are the most challenges from our students?
Literacy challenges
Literacy
facing
challenges.
our students.
Okay. We have programming for our students in regards to literacy, and I think it's doing well. I don't have the stats or statistics on those, but I do know that there is support. I do hope that Park Hill will continue to bring in more support when it comes to that, though. I have a son that was an ESL for 6 years, and he wasn't supposed to be. And it was unfortunate to find that out afterwards. But in the long run, what I'm thinking they did was the fact that he couldn't comprehend very well, and they thought that that was going to help him. So I think we need to have more understanding of what literacy means and what it is, and individualize each student that is needing that support so that they're not in a case where something might seem like it works, but in the long run, they didn't need that. Maybe they needed some other type of support. So as a parent who's literally been in something like that, I do feel like we need to have more individualized communication, especially with our families.
Thanks. Janice, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, literacy is really the foundation for all education. I think there's a lot of studies and statistics out there that would tell you if you're having trouble reading by third grade, then you're just kind of continually falling behind after that because you can't read or have the literacy skills to keep up with the rest of the curriculum. So literacy, no doubt, so important. I think Park Hill has a number of things in place to support every student. We have tiered interventions where we have very kind of different standards for recognizing problems that kids are having at every level and being able to reach in immediately, whether it's pull them out, push in, different kind of support systems that are available. I think technology is a great tool as well that can provide individualized instruction. We don't want to rely on technology or a computer to teach all of reading, but it is a very important tool to have to be able to meet the needs of individual students for individual different levels of literacy. So I think there's a lot of tools out there, but it's definitely a very important part of learning and should remain a focus, especially in the younger years, to give students a great foundation to be able to continue learning.
Thanks. Alexia, your take?
Thank you for that question. So I think this is kind of two stories, right? So Park Hill actually, we have very good reading numbers. So over 70% of our students are at or above grade level in reading. That's through the NWEA and the MAP tests. But on the other hand, I would say where we do struggle is what we call the achievement gap, which is, when we're comparing essentially the majority white students to students that, minorities, special education, especially English language learners, it's that gap that we are struggling to fill. And so what are we doing in our schools to make sure that every student has the ability to, be at or above grade level? One of the things Janice has mentioned this, but I would just add that I really appreciate what Park Hill does is that we do have some Title I funding, which are federal funds to support certain schools where there's a certain metric of free and reduced lunch at those elementary level schools. So we do receive federal funds to provide reading interventionists, but then the board also provides one more teacher at those schools that are at a little bit more higher risk, specifically for reading, to make sure that they are intervening with those students and giving them the best chance to succeed from an early age.
Thanks. Brandon, over to you.
Yeah, literacy is, as I think Gina said, it's one of the most important things. It's the basis for everything. If you can't read, then school's a lot harder. As Alexia said, 70% on our NWEA, but that still leaves 30%. That's almost a third that are facing challenges. And I'm very numbers focused, very budget focused. And so I look at the opportunity cost of things. And when we have 30% of our kids with challenges there, and I look at our budget and see, oh, we're spending $500,000 on some restorative practices training. Well, could that $500,000 be in the classroom for something like that? Yeah, circle time is fun, but that's not going to help kids read. That's not going to help kids do math. So when my focus has been the budget and the opportunity cost and what could we pay for that actually helps our students as opposed to these consultants here or consultants there. That's where I'm at. And that's why I'm running again. That's just, we got to look at these things.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Alexia.
Sorry, I can't hear that one.
About now?
That is better just right now.
Is this clear?
Yes.
Some in Jefferson City are talking about
Okay,
standardizing school
Can you
board
start-
terms to 4
Can you
years.
start one more time? Sorry.
Sure.
Okay.
Some in Jefferson City are talking about standardizing school board terms to 4 years, requiring candidates to list their political party and changing the elections from April to November. What are your thoughts on these proposed changes?
I will say on the 4-year term, I don't necessarily have an opinion on that. I think 3 years is a good mix, as we see, for example, our state reps are only 2 years, and that's kind of a constant cycle of running. So I don't really have an opinion on the 3 versus 4 years. I do have an opinion on these races being partisan and being put with other elections in November. So I really appreciate that the school board is nonpartisan. I think it gives us a chance to be open-minded with each other because no one's coming from a certain policy perspective. We're just here for the students and the families, and that is our first priority. It's not to a party. And then, I understand some people believe that it needs to be in November because people come out and vote, but that's when people come out and vote in very heated partisan elections. And in April, it's more typically your local elections. We don't have hardly any money for these races. So trying to get our message out there amongst, for example, a presidential race in November would be very difficult. So I support keeping local, school board bond issues, even though those can happen anytime, separate from those major November elections.
Thanks. Deanna, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I am 3 years, 4 years. I don't think that's something that I really have an opinion on in regards to that. This is a volunteer thing, and running again, I think is the opportunity for the person that wants to do it. So I feel okay with either one. I do like the fact that it is nonpartisan and not sharing our political views. It is a very, dimensional. It's a strong time out here right now. And I'll be personal, as a Latina and the first one in 75 years that would be elected, it is a scary time. I've already had many scary things happen to me on the socials as well as in personal. So, and I've only done this since January, and this is my first campaign. So I don't honestly, to be honest, I don't think it's really going to matter either way because it is people's opinions and they will come after or do things, whether it's November or April. Because like I said, I'm in that mode right now, but I'm still fighting for this seat. I'm still fighting for the voices that need to be heard and need to be seen, and I'm not going to back down. So for me, it doesn't matter November or April because I'm in the thick of it either way.
Thanks.
Sandy, I think your internet is unstable.
I don't know. It could be. Brandon?
Okay, yeah. As far as 3 year term, 4 year term, I mean, I think 3 years is good. I mean, I guess four is not that much different. I kind of like everybody else. It's not really a big deal. I mean, as long as we keep it to where they're staggered, to where there's somebody up every year or so, I like that. So that way it's not just the same people getting elected every 3 years or 4 years. I mean, that to me is more important than how long the term is. So that way there's always the opportunity to get somebody new in there. The April to November, again, I kind of like April as well, as far as it is mostly just the local community going out to vote, and we won't get lost in the shuffle. I mean, if people are going out to vote right now, it's for the school board. Like that's what they're doing. I mean, they've researched us, they know what we're for, and that's why they're out there. In November, we're just going to be another one in a long list, and they might not even pay attention to who they're voting for. So I don't like the November thing. And then as far as political party goes, I think it's redundant. I think anybody that gets on our websites and looks into us could probably figure out where we are in the political spectrum. So putting that on the ballot is just ridiculous. The school board should be nonpartisan. We should try to put that aside for the school board and focus on the kids, and because that's what's important. So, that's just stupid.
Janice?
Yes, I would agree on most of what's been said. I would have a slight preference to continuing 3-year terms over 4 years, because I would hate to discourage anyone who couldn't make a 4-year commitment from running. I think it's really important to have anyone that feels like they have a voice to contribute and wants to serve the public have an opportunity to do so. And so I think keeping it at 3 years is a little more manageable for people. I do hope that school board elections remain nonpartisan. I just think it invites a lot more friction and hostility into the situation, and our focus should be on the kids and improving education for the kids in our district. So, and it's the same for keeping it on the April ballot. It's just keeping the focus on schools and our kids, I think, is a lot better, a lot easier to do in April than November in a contentious election. So I would be in favor of keeping it nonpartisan and on the April ballot.
Thanks. Janice, you get to keep going. This is a shift. Please tell us about a teacher.
Sorry, you're breaking up again.
Man, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's better.
Please tell us about a teacher who inspired, gosh, oh, my screen's acting up. A teacher who inspired your interest in supporting Park Hill schools.
Yeah. I could talk a lot about a lot of teachers who've inspired me. I have a lot of teachers in my family, and I have the utmost respect for teachers, and I'm very proud to have earned the Park Hill NEA endorsement. That just means a lot to my heart. And I have been inspired by teachers on my own, but I'm also inspired by one of my daughter's teachers. My daughter used to not want to read very much; she just wasn't interested in it. And one of her freshman English teacher took that as a challenge and went on a mission to find a book that would hook her interest, and found one, and connected with her and just made her a lifelong reader. And it's just that, and she has that connection with so many kids. It wasn't just like she singled out my daughter. She has a connection like that with so many kids. And seeing her bring to life that from my daughter really just made me so proud, and really inspired me to keep going. And in fact, that's my daughter's inspiration. She's now studying to be a teacher herself. So really have a strong connection with the teachers in our district and continually inspired by their work.
Great. Brandon?
Yeah. So I guess for me, it wasn't a teacher that inspired me to want to help Park Hill School District, at least not directly. My wife, as I said, works for the district at one of the schools, and she's in the front office. She's friends with lots of teachers, and they go out after work, they vent. I hear about the frustrations that they face, and that's what inspired me to run, is the frustrations that I hear about from her through from them through her. And then I see the challenges that my kids do face at some of the schools. Most of them are really good, and they really don't have a ton of issues, but the few they do have seem like they could be fixed, hopefully. And the teacher frustrations could definitely be fixed with just a little bit of listening to them and giving them what they need. So it wasn't a single teacher, it was multiple teachers venting to my wife, and me hearing the frustrations secondhand. That's what inspired me.
Thanks. Deanna?
I don't want to get emotional with this, but I probably will. Educators are our lifeline when it comes to schools, and we survived and continue to survive Park Hill District because of our educators, 110%. I'll give a thing of the art teachers for my son right now. He almost gave up on it. And without them, he wouldn't be where he is right now. And he's about to graduate early, the first of my kids to do that, which is a huge inspiration because we didn't think that was going to happen. And he's not going to college. He's going to do his trade school. And his educators have been so supportive of him. And like, your work, you can do this. I never felt that in school. And being in Park Hill and having the educators behind our kids, that's what made them get through. My daughter got a KU full ride because of her educators, 110%. So all the love and all the support to them, because that's why I'm running, is because we need our educators, and our educators are going to bring our students to exactly where they need to be. And with all of that, we include our families to be a part of it all. And that's the way I felt with my experience here at Park Hill.
Lex,
I really appreciated Deanna's response. And I certainly agree that, without the teachers and support staff that we have at Park Hill, it would not be the district that it is. I would probably say, the teacher that inspired me most, as I mentioned at the beginning, my mom was a teacher, taught elementary students, for her whole career. And, that was just so normal to me, to have a teacher in my family. And I saw the commitment that she had for her career, and that, I knew that being a teacher was probably not the right thing for me, but so impressed with people that are willing to put, their whole career into that. I had a couple of high school teachers that, in my own upbringing, inspired me, English teacher and kind of a history teacher. And I would say they taught me to, think broadly and be an advocate. And I'd like to think that, those are skills that I'm bringing to the board. And then Janice had mentioned, a specific teacher encouraging her daughter to have a love of reading. I have felt that every teacher that my kids have had so far in Park Hill was like almost handpicked for them, and, was just the right teacher for that moment for my girls. And I think other parents have felt that same way. So I just think they do a great job of individualizing that education and bringing to the students what they need in that time.
thanks. Here it is. Next. Can you hear me?
If you're saying something, we can't hear you.
Nope.
I could hear you right there at the end if you want to.
Well, I'm getting an unstable internet sound. Go ahead again. Can you hear this?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Sorry about that. How would you define the separation?
Sorry, you're breaking up again.
Sandy, you're frozen.
Hi, folks. I'm going to come in as the understudy for Sandy. So I hope you can hear me. Is that right? All right? Okay. Uh, Here's the next question. How do you define separation of church and state regarding the public school districts, and what areas should be or should not be included? And we're going to start with Deanna.
I agree. I don't agree that church and state should be a part of our school systems. That is not what our public school system is built for. And I think, we should be inclusive and, be equitable in our schools, but we should not have to force anyone to feel like it is one thing or another. We are a very diverse, very, very diverse community, right? With many different languages, many different backgrounds, many different religions, and some no religion. So to force a religion in our schools is absolutely something I disagree with 110%.
Okay. So next up is Alexia.
So I do not believe that we should be teaching from a certain religious perspective at all in our schools. I don't think it's inappropriate to teach it, for example, in middle or high school from a historical perspective to talk about different religions, welcome different religions, even in elementary school. I know that the students will talk about each holiday as it's coming up and what is the history behind that, and maybe talk with certain students in the classroom about what are their family traditions and things like that. I believe that brings, an inclusive community for everybody to be able to talk about what their background is. But I certainly would not agree with something like, teaching the 10 Commandments or having it up on the board or that kind of thing. We are separating. We want to make sure that everyone feels included at our schools, and it's just inappropriate to teach that a certain religious perspective in our schools is what it is. It often alienates students, and that's not at all what we want in our school districts.
Thank you. Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, the separation of church and state, that's been a thing for ever. I mean, for a long time. So I guess that's a strange question. But as far as I know, we're not teaching a religion. We're not running Park Hill as a Christian or any other school district. I mean, we're not running it as a Catholic school or a Baptist school, or I mean, we're not doing anything like that. So it's a, I guess I don't understand the basis for the question, but I don't see us converting to religious curriculum or anything like that. I don't see us forcing any religion on our students or anything like that as well. So as long as we're not shutting down somebody's religious beliefs for some reason at Park Hill, I think we're doing a good job there. And I don't, that's, yeah, that's all I have on that.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. I just want to reiterate that the questions are submitted by the public, so we'll let Janice bring us home on this one.
Yeah, I believe strongly in the separation between church and state, and I feel that teaching religion in our schools is inappropriate. I think it is great to be inclusive and hear other people's backgrounds and experiences and beliefs. But as far as curriculum goes and teaching, we should stick to non-religious subjects. And I think the question probably comes from the states nearby us that have mandated posting of the 10 Commandments and that kind of thing. And I just think that alienates, like Alexia said, so many kids, where you think it's not harmful. It can be if you're practicing another religion and you're kind of forced into that. So I would hope that we would remain and as long as I'm part of it, I'm going to fight to keep teaching of religion out of our schools and make it inclusive for kids of all religions and backgrounds to feel welcome in our schools.
Thank you. So our next question is, how will you collaborate with your board peers, both inside and outside of meetings, especially those with whom you do not agree? And we'll start with Brandon.
I mean, the biggest thing usually when it comes to disagreements is just talking them through and finding out where the other person's coming from and finding some common ground. And then also, I mean, there's usually, when you're trying to make decisions, there's I'm sure there's budget limitations. There's things you'd like to do but can't do. Um, prioritize this over that. So, I mean, I'm just going to, listen more than anything, where they're coming from, why they want to do this over this, and see if I can, get to where they're at. And then if I can't, I'll explain, hey, I understand why you want to get here, here, here. Here's why I can't get to where you're at. Here's where I disagree. And, you know, calmly and rationally working through issues works most of the time. It's when you get emotional and defensive, that's when things break down and that's when you can't solve problems. So, just listen, talk, think things through. That's how I will get along with everybody.
Okay, thank you. Deanna?
I believe wholeheartedly that we're all here for the same thing, for our Park Hill families, students, educators. So I know our goal is that, and how we get to our goals is going to be different. And I think that's exactly what we need, right? If we had a monolith of things, we wouldn't be where we are today. So I am glad that we all come from different lived experiences and we come from different places in different generations. Some people have been on the board longer than others. This is my first one I would be on. So we all have to learn from each other. And I think in the end of the day, we're more alike than we are different. And I think it's just taking that time to get to know each other, and being open, right? Being an open-minded person, and definitely, like Brandon said, listening.
Thank you. Janice?
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from. I'm going to agree with Deanna. I do have a belief that we're all here for good intentions, and so when you have that, it makes it a lot easier to work together. That being said, you can have very wide range of opinions. Has been my experience on the board, and the key to it is listening and communicating and having a basis of a healthy, respectful relationship among board members. And that's the key. You can disagree a lot but do so respectfully. So you would hope that you could keep respectful disagreement. I think is healthy among the board. It kind of expands everyone's view and makes you think about things from a different perspective. But even at the end, if you can't agree, you can still do so respectfully. And I've been on like losing votes of board issues and things, and the board speaks with one voice, and so whether you've voted for or against something, once the board decides, that's what it is, and you move forward. So I think we've been very fortunate to have that kind of mentality in Park Hill, and I would work really hard to keep that going forward.
Thank you. Alexia?
Yeah, I'm really just going to echo what the others have said. And in my short time on the board, I've been, fortunate to see how the board interacts a lot, to the credit of Janice and the others on the board that have come before her. Is I find everybody is here for the right thing. They're here first and foremost for our students, which, going back to that question about, being a partisan or nonpartisan board, our not having to, answer whether it's to a certain district within the school. We're not elected on areas of the district. We're not elected by party. So our first commitment can be to the students and their families. And I've seen that the board members, everyone does a good job of doing their homework, making sure they understand the issues, talking through issues in meetings, talking beforehand as needed to the superintendent to really understand an issue, and then coming together to work through it and then make a vote. I haven't really been involved in anything controversial so far, but I am confident that when that happens, that everybody will talk through it and listen. And then what's really important is, after a decision has been made, for something especially potentially contentious or big for the community, that all of the board members, even if they didn't support it, come together and support it moving forward, because it's really not helpful to continue to be divisive. And I've seen that from the current board, and I really think that would continue.
Thank you. And so let's see, Janice, you're going to be up first on this one. As I said before, all of these questions come from the public, and we get a lot of different questions on our website. Here's just an interesting one. How do you plan to stop woke indoctrination in schools?
I I don't feel like there's anything to stop at Park Hill. I really don't like that kind of woke indoctrination. I've seen the work that our teachers do, and it's not indoctrination. And I've heard a lot of jokes that if our teachers could indoctrinate our kids, they wouldn't be working on things that the media would describe as woke. They would be just having some more basic things that they would indoctrinate. So I don't believe our teachers are indoctrinating our students. They are teaching from the heart. They are teaching rigorous curriculum. They are teaching inclusivity. They are teaching building relationships with those students, welcoming students of all backgrounds and different things. So those are things that I want to see continue in Park Hill and would work to do so.
Thank you. Alexia?
I think the problem with people saying that something is woke is it's usually that it's something they disagree with, right? And we can't just be frustrated by the fact that people might have different opinions. And if they have a different opinion, well, then that shouldn't be discussed. So I just think that the premise is difficult. And, just because you don't agree with something, you shouldn't be against it. I think what's great about Park Hill is we have excellent curriculum. You can, as a parent, you can go online and look at the curriculum of every bit of what your student is learning at school. And we really enforce the curriculum across every school. So, you could walk into a second grade classroom at grade N and then over at Line Creek on a certain week, and the students are learning the same thing across the district. And if you're really interested as a parent or community member, you can look at that. And we're really, a district that other districts look at because of the curriculum that we choose and the curriculum that our teachers actually write and then provide to the public. So I'm not concerned that there are inappropriate things being taught to our students. They are being taught to the standards. And I really like that if someone wants to dive into it, they can see what the students are being taught.
Thank you. Brandon, what's your thoughts?
I have a daughter, like I said, in sixth grade and one in kindergarten. So far, to my knowledge, they haven't been taught anything on either side of the political spectrum at school. So, and that's usually what woke means is, it's one side of the political spectrum. So, so far, 6 years in, I haven't seen it. Hopefully it stays that way. I don't have a junior high I don't have a high schooler yet, so I don't know what it's like there, but I hope that there's nothing going on like that, and I'm sure there's not. So as long as we stick to the curriculum, like she was saying, stick to education and not political ideology, it shouldn't become a problem. I think things have changed quite a bit since I was in school. When I was in school, I actually had a math teacher who we had political debates with, and that just boggles my mind to think about now. It's like, why was I having political debates with a math teacher in high school? That should have never been a thing, and I don't think it is at Park Hill, and I hope it never will be a thing at Park Hill. And I will fight to make sure that we stick to the curriculum and that never happens. So,
thank you. And Deanna?
I'm assuming when they say woke, they're talking about political. I'm just going to take that as an assumption when they're describing that. So I do have a high schooler right now currently. Like I said, I have two that graduated recently. And from my knowledge, there has never been anything in regards to that. The curriculum is amazing. Again, I moved here specifically for the education here. As Alexia and Janice have said, you can clearly see exactly what your kids are learning going to their website. I get notifications all the time on what my student is learning, his grades. So I'm constantly in awe of the work that our educators are doing right now, and I don't see any problem with what they're learning.
Okay. So before we get to your 2-minute closing statements, I have one last question for you. What question do you wish I had asked, and how would you have answered it? And we're going to start with Alexia.
I would have thought maybe we would answer a question about, what is the biggest issue facing the district, and how I would have likely answered it would be, we as a board, we were just in Jefferson City last week, and what the state legislature does has a tremendous impact on us here at Park Hill and in public education in general. I am, concerned about changes to tax policies, whether it's income tax policy and property tax policies, because that would have a direct impact on our budget in Park Hill. We're already talking about just anticipating changes coming to the budget, maybe not quite this year, but certainly over the next couple of years. And I believe that the administration and the board were doing a good job at looking at, where can we make savings that are not directly impacting our teachers, our classrooms. So we're already doing that work, even if maybe it's not this year, it's coming. And I would just hope that, the people listening to this or that are going to listen to it, make sure that they really do understand, how our legislators actually at, county, state, and federal level really have an impact on public education, and funding is important. And putting mandates on the schools where money doesn't follow it is a real problem. So just to keep an eye out as to what's happening in Jeff City.
Okay, thank you. Brandon, what question do you wish I'd ask?
That's really wasn't sure what to expect with questions, so I guess what I wish you'd asked, I wish there would have been some question about the budget and how we're doing. I've been spending a lot of time analyzing our budget, and we do have, we gave teachers raises, which was great. I voted for the teacher raises. But looking at our budget, we might not have needed the tax increase to do that if we didn't have some of the bloat in our budget. And so I want to really dive deep into our budget and look at everything we're paying for, like $500,000 for just one consultant firm, the collaborative school culture where they learned about restorative practices. It's circle time with kids and learning to talk to them, things that teachers already know how to do, and we're paying some outside firm $500,000 to teach our teachers something they already know. And wastes of money like that could go towards our teachers or our students or our classrooms in some way, shape, or form. So those are the things I want to look out for and try to prevent in the future.
Thank you. Deanna, what question do you wish I'd asked?
Yeah, so personally, I wanted to be able to express how our board is not going to always be seen as the pie in the sky, right? Untouchable, because that's exactly what the board felt to me in these 12 years that I've been at Park Hill. And I don't want that disconnect anymore. I want us to feel like we are a part of Park Hill. We all are, right? And we won't know what we need for our district if we don't talk to the people actually working it every single day, going in at 6 in the morning, not leaving till 10 o'clock at night. Teachers have second jobs, third jobs, and that shouldn't be happening, right? So it's just things in regards to, I'm a mother, I was a student, I did not go to college. I'm a GED recipient because I was told I shouldn't finish school because I was the lowest of the grades in my grades. So I was also a teen mom. And so I know what it's like to feel left out and not have a voice and not have support. And I don't want any student in Park Hill to have to feel that way. So I feel like we start with the board, we start from the top and work our way, because we got to ensure that all of our families feel like they're being supported. And I hope that we bring those voices to the table, to our board.
Thank you. And Janice, what question do you wish I'd asked?
I have a real passion for public education. So there's a whole host of things that I wish you could have asked me about. And I could talk for a long time about things that we do well and things that we want to improve on in Park Hill. One thing I feel like that has been touched on here, though, is our financial situation, and it affects every asset of our public education. I think we do a tremendous job of planning in Park Hill. Our budgeting process is thorough all the way through our buildings, and the process has earned awards for how detailed our budgeting process is. It is transparent. It's all on the website and down to very detailed amounts that you can look at what we're spending our money on. And we don't just do it for 1 year, we do it for multiple years in advance. So we're planning constantly for what happens. And I do feel like some of that is being challenged. Some of our local control through our money is being challenged. And I think it's going to be a continual challenge and struggle to make sure that we receive adequate funding statewide, locally, and keep on top of how that's going to reach into every aspect of our school. And so our budgeting process is really going to be crucial. And our the way we spend our money is very important. And I am proud of what we've done in Park Hill and the way that we've made certain cuts and be able to hold ourselves accountable while still focusing on the future.
Thank you very much. And so we've reached the end of our questions. We're ready for your 2-minute closing statements. I want to thank you very much for coming and participating, and most especially for your patience with our technical difficulties. We're finding that every forum we have a different situation. So we're going to start with Deanna for a 2-minute closing statement.
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everybody watching and for the questions that were sent in. As I mentioned, I am new here. I'm new to this school board campaigning. I'm new to what would be this seat, but I hope I can bring a fresh perspective, a perspective that I'm a Chicana, very proud. I have an undocumented dad, who is citizenized. My husband is the same way. And, my kids come from a very cultural background. We want to ensure everyone feels like they are part of Park Hill, no matter where they come from, no matter what their background is, what languages that they speak. We need to ensure that all students are being supported in the way that they should be. And as a 12-year family here, that's not always been the case. So I want to bring those voices. And as I said, educators, students, and families, we need to ensure that we are listening to them, that we are with them, that they are a voice at our table. This is vital. As I've said, I've not always felt that our voices were always heard. We were in the behind, left behind, and our educators is exactly why, again, we survived Park Hill. And we need to ensure that it changes and that everybody feels like they belong here at Park Hill. And I hope to bring that voice to this table and be a representative of many people that the voices should be here.
Thank you. Alexia, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you again so much for organizing this, and for those at home who've been listening, and thanks to the other candidates. Serving on this board is a big commitment. Just taking the time to run and be on the ballot is a big commitment to put your name out there. And then once we're on the board, it's a lot of time, to prepare for, engage in the meetings, attend school events, a big responsibility to our students and their families and to our community, while we're trying to do the most good and yet be efficient with the district's resources. I think the board should be the biggest advocates and cheerleader for Park Hill. There's so many great things happening in this district. I could pick so many things, but some of the items I would share would be Park Hill and Park Hill South, rank in the top 15 of public high schools in Missouri. 56 teachers and staff won local, national, or state awards over the last year. We have more high school students than ever taking AP exams. Our elementary students continue to do impressive things, participating in STEM competitions, learning about broadcasting. These are the types of things, as a board member, I would want to share throughout the community. There's probably a lot of people listening who don't have children in our schools, so they want to know what we're doing. What are we doing with the tax dollars? And I would share that news in the community and in Jeff City. And I would promise to be an advocate for Park Hill and public education if I'm elected. I hope through my responses, you've gotten a sense of my desire to serve our community in Park Hill. But if you have any more questions for me, I do have a Facebook and website, and be happy to answer if you want to reach out and we can talk more. Thank you.
Thank you. Brandon, how would you like to go?
Yeah, definitely. Again, yeah, like everybody they said, thanks for having us and hosting this. I'm going to kind of touch on the budget some more because the numbers are where I feel I can help the most. I mean, it's boring, but the money is how we pay for all this. It's how we pay the teachers to teach the kids. It's supplies in the classrooms. I mean, the more money going into the classrooms, the better our kids learn. That's just the way it is. And so, I mean, to touch on like budget transparency and things like that, the budget is out there. You can read it. It's confusing. Um, it's not easy to read, and there's a lot more detail actually in like the monthly treasurer's report that actually has the line by line billing. And so there's certain items like our access and inclusion budget that in the budget in one section looks like it's $78,000. But if you add up all of those expenses that are categorized in other areas, it's actually closer to $500,000 a year. So we need to do a better job with our budget, making it easier to read so that parents, taxpayers, everybody knows what's actually in it and where the money's actually going. That's the only way we can ever truly get a balanced budget, a budget that everybody is happy with or more people are happy with. It's too confusing right now. Um, Nobody goes through it. Nobody reads it. It's 80 some pages. It's we need to make it simpler and easier to read across the board because it's boring. I mean, the budgets are boring. They are, but that's how everything gets paid for. So if nobody's looking at it, it's easy to slide stuff through. And one note about our award that we win for the budget, we pay a membership fee to that company. So I don't know if we actually win that award or if that's one of those like who's who amongst American high school students where if you just pay a fee, you end up with it. So um, it's just, I have a lot of passion for the budget.
We understand your position. Thank you very much for your closing statement. And Janice, would you like to close us out?
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me tonight and having all of us. This is such an important forum and way for people to be able to hear directly from the candidates. And I really appreciate the statement early on where you're defending our democracy. That's just so important right now. I just want to touch on why I'm running. I think I said earlier, I've been on the board for a long time, and I feel like I bring extensive knowledge, and especially with my background in accounting and finance. But I also am not afraid to challenge the district when we have things that we can do better. And I think we've shown that over the last number of years. I'm really proud of our diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging work that we've done. I think we've done it efficiently and in a manner that reaches every aspect of our schools. It's very important for all kids and families to feel welcome in each building that they enter. I do feel a certain responsibility to all of our stakeholders. I know we have a lot of taxpayers who don't have children in the district, and I want to be able to continue to protect your property values. One of the most important indicators for property value in Park Hill is the quality of our schools. And so that's very important. Even for people that don't have kids in the district, they're still an important stakeholder. And I want to continue to hear voices from them as well. And just know that I will be an advocate for all children in the Park Hill School District and for public education as a whole, locally, the state level, and federal level. So I would really appreciate your vote on April 7th. And thanks again for having me tonight.
Thank you. I want to especially thank all of our candidates for coming this evening and wish them luck in their future endeavors. And I want to thank Dave Mountjoy, who's been our tech host tonight, and Stephanie Revels, who's done the really thankless job of timing and done it very well, Stephanie. Thank you. And to our audience, who's watching now and who will be watching us later on YouTube, please let your friends know that this recording of this forum will be available on YouTube. You just go to YouTube and /LWVKC, and it should pretty much pop right up. And I'm going to turn things over to Anitra.
Thank you, audience. Elizabeth, you stole some of my lines.
I know, but I don't have my script in front of me.
Share this forum with your neighbors and your mother-in-laws because there's excellent information about each candidate in it. And remember, for voting and candidate information, go to lwvkc.org and vote411.org. Thank you. Good night.